sound better.
All right, now if that doesn't get you ready for the weekend, I don't know what does. That was Future Rave Excite, our demo from that pack. Go check it out. It's only $6. So, great to see you guys. Great to be back here. Josh with WA Production back with another live stream feedback session and production session. We will get into the live stream feedback portion a little later on. You guys can start submitting your tracks on our Discord server. That is the only place to submit tracks for me to listen to. I can go through those a little bit later on, and we'll go in a random order, so don't worry if you are last on the list. That doesn't mean I won't get to you, but I will go in a random order. Please only submit SoundCloud links, preferably. No video links, no YouTube links. Those kind of mess things up, and only submit your track once, please. So before we get into that portion, we are going to do our usual production session. So what I'm going to go over today is some automation tricks, and I think especially early on, I know that I had this problem when I first started. I didn't know what all these red lines meant, and didn't really use them. And you guys are probably smarter than I was back then, but I know that when I first started, I didn't automate anything, and didn't really understand why I would. I'm not going to be that basic today. I will talk some basics of automation, but then I'll show you some maybe more advanced ways that you can use it and do some cool stuff. Automation is really, if not the key, it's one of the keys in your DAW to kind of opening up this endless supply of possibilities and different ways you can do interesting and unique things. And interesting and unique things in production are what make interesting and unique tracks. So first, what is automation? Again, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes talking about what is automation for those of you who probably already know, but for those who don't, automation is basically how you can control various parameters in your DAW, whether it's parameters in the DAW or parameters of a plugin or an effect or a synth or something like that over time. And by parameters, I mean you can automate the tempo, you can automate the filter frequency. I mean, you can get as broad or as narrow as you like. You can automate volume, all these different kinds of things that you can do. It depends on the plugin, but almost all parameters are typically automatable. And so I'm going to go over a few ways that you can use automation in your tracks. And what I will say too is that if you have any questions that come up about this or about anything else, please shoot them over in either the YouTube chat or the Discord live stream Q&A channel. I will try and address them. So, in its most basic form, and every DAW is a little bit different. In Ableton, at least in the newer versions, you press A, and the automation lines come up, these red lines. In Logic, it's similar. I believe you also press A, and I'm not sure about the other ones off the top of my head, but it's pretty straightforward. And in Ableton, you have like your automation lane on the track, and you can choose what shows there by clicking here. So you got your basic mixer ones. You can choose track volume, which will automate this. You'll see that as I move this, the red line will move. Speaker on, rather than having different levels, there's literally two options, on or off. So that'll turn on and off the speaker so that it mutes it basically. And then panning and all sorts of stuff. And then you can go and select, let's say, Babylon, our synth, and you can look at, I haven't turned on any automation parameters, but if I were to do so, I can configure automation in the plugin. I'm not going to go into detail about how to do that because every DAW is a little bit different and stuff like that, but you would have your list of automated parameters or automatable parameters there. So yeah, you're basically selecting your different elements that you want to automate. So there's a couple ways you can automate, and again, this is another thing that changes a little bit depending on what DAW you're in, but generally they're pretty applicable principles to any DAW. You can automate on the track like I was showing you, or you can automate within your clip. And so the reason you would want to do one versus the other is, let's say I've got a looped clip and I want the same automation to happen every time it loops. I would want to do the automation within the clip probably, so that I'm not copy pasting the same automation across the entire track unnecessarily. If I want, like, just during the build of my song for the volume to increase or something like that, I would probably do that on the on the track or on the group. You can do it on a group as well, so that you don't have to copy the same automation to like 5 different tracks. If they're all in the same group, you can just automate the parameter on the group. So within the clip, and again, it's going to be a little different in each DAW, but this is how you do it in Ableton. You can choose what parameters you want to automate within the clip. So right here, I've just put together literally just a single note pluck, I think. Pretty boring. So one thing I don't see people do too much, you can do this either like very subtly or very abruptly, or very a large amount. I'm going to open up Babylon here by WA Productions so I can take a look at it. Is something that's pretty cool, just to give your track a little bit of motion, a little bit of change throughout the track, is a slight automation of the tuning or something like that. I'm just going to do this kind of randomly. Just slight. So basically your pitch bend range here within the plugin, pretty much all synth plugins will have something like this. What this determines is the maximum amount that your automation can go. So if your pitch bend range is 2, that means that when I pull it all the way up 2 semitones up, so if I'm on A, it's going to be now B, because it's A sharp, B. So that's the maximum. If I were to put this at 12, it would be a whole octave. That's how many semitones are in an octave. So what's cool about doing it super subtly is that you're not really going out of key. Like, you're still basically playing the same note, but it's like a slight variation just to give your sound some character and give like kind of a subtle. The listener's not going to be able to tell exactly what's happening, but they're going to be able to hear that it's like slightly different. Something's moving, something's changing. So super subtle. If I were to go all the way up to, 2 semitones. And maybe that's something you want to do sometime. I mean, that's cool too. If you really want to create a new melody with it, essentially. I mean, now you can get really crazy, do it by 12 semitones. So that's how, you can make like a riser or something, Anyway, so that's using pitch. You can, automate any one of a number of parameters. Obviously, look at all these options. So, you could automate the panning, have it go, left to right. I don't know why that didn't actually affect the panning. I'd have to look and see exactly why that's happening. But anyway, you can do that within the track as well. But let's see if that works. Yeah, it worked that time. All right. Anyway, so that's a very basic version of automation. So here's another example of something cool you can do, and I kind of got some inspiration for this from somebody like Above and Beyond. So here's just some like basic chords. Okay, so some chords with a lot of reverb on them. But what I want to do is kind of create like a reverse reverb effect, which, like I said, Above and Beyond, if you listen to the song like Sun and Moon, like those big chords, love that track, and they do this. They probably do it slightly differently. I mean, this is a very basic way of doing it, but I've got this reverb send going on, and it's super wet. But you can automate sends as well. You can automate the volume of it. So rather than automating how much reverb I'm sending the full amount of reverb, because I want the full amount of reverb. If I were to automate the reverb, it would, like, if I were to automate it, there would be no reverb coming, because I'm just having the reverb play during the silence, so there's nothing to reverb, if that makes sense. So if I have it send full amount of reverb and then I automate the volume of my reverb, we can do something pretty cool. So let me just do this real quick. Oh, one other thing to note, I guess I don't need to have it like this, is that in Ableton, at least, you can have different automation lanes. So like I can choose, I want my reverb to show as an automation lane always, and no matter what I select up here, you can have it be its own thing here, and then I could do it again with the panning. Like if I want these to always show, I don't use that super often. I think it gets like, I don't like having that many tracks showing, but it is kind of cool if that's something that you find useful. So here, let's just copy this over. Again, I'd probably fine tune this a bit more than I am right now, but oh, that's not how I want it. Let's just do it like that. Okay, that is the right. Okay. Sort of. Okay, like this. Okay. So now let's hear how this sounds. You hear how the reverb kind of comes up. It's almost like a reverse swell. So that's one cool effect that you can do. I might actually make this even louder sometimes. So when you go from 0, the loudest point is so short that it isn't very loud. So let's do this. It might clip it, but let's just see how it sounds. Anyway, so you would do it with a much more interesting chord progression than that and a better sound and all of that stuff. But there's a lot of cool stuff. You know, with automation, if you really want to dial something in and get it super, super precise, that's an awesome way to do it. You can totally do this a different way. You can do it with a volume shaper. You can do side chaining and have it side chain it so that it only comes in and pumps after a certain amount of time or whatever. But you know, if you really want to dial something in, dial in the exact curve, you know, exactly where it comes in or how much it goes. You know, doing it manually with automation, I'm not saying you should do that with everything, but it can make it a super accurate way of doing it. So the third example here is something a little bit more complex. So this goes into creating macros and mapping and stuff. And again, this is something that's done a little bit differently in every DAW, but every DAW lets you do something like this. So I'm using here Soundtoys Tremolator, which is kind of a cool plugin if you want just like basically that automatic wobble effect, whether it's dubstep or future bass or something like that. I used to use it a lot. These days I do things a little bit more manually just because I like the control, but it's a pretty cool plugin anyway. So what I did here is, what's cool with macros and this kind of mapping is that you can sometimes automate things that aren't really automatable. So in this plugin, for whatever reason, I think it would be nice if they let you, but you can't automate the rhythm parameter, which for me, at least as far as I can tell, I haven't figured out a way to do it directly, which for me is a bit strange because I don't know, I like to switch between a 16th note rhythm and an 8th note and a quarter note or whatever. So what I did here very quickly is I put together a very basic audio effect rack. So what you can do is create a group. Again, probably a little different in every DAW, but I've got 2 tremolators in a chain. So they're playing, they're separate. And so what I've done is I've got them both here, and I've got it so that when I switch this, it turns one on and one off. And one is set to 1/8 notes and one is set to 16th notes. So let's hear what happens. And then as you can see, this red line switches. So you can automate this. You know, I could draw in automation however I want, you know. And so now I've created an automatable parameter because that's what these macros do. You can map, I don't think it's unlimited, but I think it's like 127 different things. Yeah, you can automate, you can map a lot of different things to each macro. So you can affect multiple parameters at the same time. That's what these macros do, is that you can automate, you know, the volume, the filter, the delay, and all of that at the same time to create like one cool mixed effect. And so let's listen. Cool. So if I wanted to create another macro, let's say I want it to adjust the groove and the feel. So that's basically like the swing and the shuffle of it, and kind of how on time it is with the grid. We can create another macro where we can map the feel. Where's groove? There's groove. Let's make sure we do it for both of our copies here. All right, so if we, now let's rename it groove / feel. I guess this is kind of becoming a macro lesson as well, but now we can adjust basically how it feels. So you can tell like the basically the accent. I guess we could have mapped accent as well, but like the syncopation of it totally changes when you do that. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with macros, and again, now we can automate all these things together to create a whole new sound. Why isn't it letting me select it? Come on. Okay. So yeah, all sorts of cool stuff we can do. We would make it sound cooler than that. Anyway, so my point here is that automation can really lead you to a lot of creative stuff, toying around with it. When you think of like, I wish I could do this make this plugin do this or whatever, a lot of times you can. You just kind of might need to do it in a roundabout way. Even if, the plugin doesn't let you automate a certain parameter, you pretty much always can make a copy of the plugin with different settings like this, and then automate switching between them. So you kind of are automating that parameter, and I could do 5 more of these, it depends on your CPU power, but I could have 10 different, tremolators here, all with different settings, and have this switch between them, and so there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with automation. I highly recommend that you guys play around with it, learn it, and every song, it gives you that ability to change how things act over time. Open filters, close filters, increase reverb, decide which syllables delay should hit on. If you listen to pop songs, a lot of times you only hear an echo on certain words, right? That's because they've automated it. They only have the delay playing on certain words, or it's only playing at a certain level on certain words at the end of a sentence or at the end of a phrase or whatever it is. So automation is super key in creating good music, and I hope that all of you got at least one cool thing out of that. So I'm going to jump out of this now. Let me know if you have any questions, and let's get into the feedback session. Let's see. Okay, so today we're going to start with Shitty Life by Controller. Let's see. All right, thank you for sending that in. Definitely some interesting sounds there. That scream was wild. Definitely was not expecting that. So first thing I'll say is that I think it seems like you're pretty early on in your production journey. And so there's a lot I could say about this song, but most of it wouldn't be very helpful. Um, First thing I'll say is that you know every if you're gonna have a good song, everything needs to be in key harmonically, and this song, there are several pieces of the melody that are out of key. The wrong notes are being played, and so first and foremost, you need to train your ear. You need to learn music theory a bit better, and you need to be able to recognize when sounds are just not in the right playing the right note. Um, I used to have the same problem a long time ago when I first started. I was not a trained producer, or I wasn't trained in music theory, and listening back now on stuff that I made, more than 10 years ago, it's like, whoa, I can't, like, how did I not hear how off key that is? It's crazy. So you'll get there, just keep trying to learn and keep getting better at that. So that's the first thing. Like, it's impossible to have a good song if there's stuff that's not in key, even if it's like the best produced song ever. Secondly, I would focus on trying to make a song, not just music. And what I mean by that is that this song has no discernible structure. Like, it's very unclear. Like, there's no repetition of parts. Like, there's like a beginning part, and then there's a second part, and then there's a third part, and then there's a fourth part, and then there's like a fifth part. There's not a intro, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus. That there need to, like, even experimental tracks have more structure than this. And so you need to be able to, like, take a listen to, I don't know who would have been an inspiration for this style of music, or, if you've got artists out there that you really like. But I would take a look at some of those and really, like, drag those songs into your DAW and start marking, like, oh, okay, so they've got an intro, a verse, a build, a pre-chorus, a chorus, like whatever it might be. And I'm not saying chorus like you need to have vocals. I'm just talking in terms of sections. You can call it a drop, you can call it a chorus, you can call it a exposition, like whatever you want to call it. But I do think that there needs to be a little bit more of a cohesive thought in this song. And then just generally, I mean, some of these sounds just don't fit together. You've got like this very experimental, like surreal track, and then you've got like a Prida snare in there, like a big room house snare, which, like, just those don't fit in the same song, And so my suggestion to you is work on your music theory first, and then just keep making music. You'll keep getting better. Try and learn from other artists. Try and learn from songs that you really like. And then you'll keep getting better. The key is just to keep working at it, keep making music. It's going to take a while, but you'll get there. All right, we've got Refracted by Neutral Face, the symbol formerly known as someone else. Alrighty, so some very cool elements here. Those drops have some really cool sounds. I like those, that like liquidy kind of sounding synth. One just general piece of advice, and I find this a challenge sometimes too. I think everybody does, but my guess here is that you created these cool drops and then built the rest of the track around it. I could be wrong, but I'm gonna guess that that's at least how a lot of my tracks end up. When you use exactly the same melody, essentially, in the rest of your track as you do in the drop is less exciting because there's not, I mean, yeah, you got different sounds in there. It's very cool, but the progression and the melody are exactly the same. That like bum, 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 bum. It's the same. And so, when you're creating verses or whatever you want to call these other sections, it can be tempting to basically make them a simplified, less cool version of the drop. But it tends to, when you do that, it makes the drop less exciting because you've heard that melody already. Like, you generally want something to be different, not just in the instrumentation, but in the actual melody of the track when you get to the drop. And so, I kind of found that was the case here. And then with the just generally, I think, you really need to work on mixing. Like, it just really sounds very off. A lot of harshness and a lot of things just kind of sounding out of place. And then just like details and making things interesting. Like your verse sections are just like not interesting at all. That melody is so basic and repetitive and it's short. And there's not really anything else there. There's not a bunch of cool layers and things like that happening to make up for that. And so I think you need to focus on that. And then also, guys, like, understand that adding a snare or a clap that goes is not a build. Like, that's not a build. That's one element of a build, and it's honestly like the most boring, overdone element possible. You need to, if you're going to make a build that actually builds energy, typically when I make a build, I have about 15, 20 different layers of effects and risers and shots and things happening. Like, listen to a song that you're inspired by and try and point out all the different things. I might have a tonal build coming from the bass side, from like low end. I might have a white noise riser coming on the right side. I might have just a short little tom fill that plays at one part. I might have a effect shot that plays at one part, and then all together it might be filtering at the same time, and the snares and hi-hats, and also like just adding a snare build is not a build. So understand, like, listen to a track, listen to something that inspires you, and listen to what they do. And you'll probably notice, like, hey, mine is like pretty dang basic compared to theirs. And that's why there's such a lack of buildup of energy. In order to explode, you need to prepare the listener and have that energy build up strongly and powerfully and get them excited about it. Because otherwise, when it comes in, it's like, oh, well, that kind of like came out of nowhere, and not in a good way. So anyway, though, there's some really cool aspects, but I think you need to kind of work on really producing and fleshing out the song and getting it to a place where it's really a banging track. So nice work, though. All right, we got Gang Guys, everybody. right, nice job. I dig it. That's really well done. So the only couple comments I would have would be, I think your drums could be a little bit more front and center and crispy. Um, if you go listen to other like G house, bass house tracks, whatever you want to call it, um, you'll hear those, especially those like top, the hi hats and cymbals and stuff like that. They're very crispy and very front and center and compressed and punchy. And the same with the kick. I kind of felt like your kick and your snare and stuff were just a little like dull. So I think it would be helpful to really place it forward in the mix and get those sounding front and center. That's a very, in addition to the bass, that's probably the other most important element are your drums. So getting that to sound front and forward and hit you in the face would be great. What else? The other thing is I felt like you could pan some elements, like you have that like bubbly riser at the end, but it sounds like it's right down the middle. For elements that don't have to be centered, like bass, kick, vocal, pan them a bit. I mean, it doesn't have to be like 50 all the way to the right, but put them in their own space so that they have room to breathe, and that the track as a whole sounds wider and has a little bit more stuff going on in the various places in the mix. So that would be it, though. I mean, it sounds really good. I mean, maybe look at the master. I don't know if you've mastered this already, but like it does look like the dynamic range is quite large. A fully mastered track shouldn't have all these peaks, or these peaks and valleys. It should be pretty flat in terms of the limiting. So that would be the other thing. But overall, really good. Nice job. I dig it. Okay. We've got James Arthur Trainwreck X Music Remix.
Silence, waiting for the signs, any signs I'm alive still. I don't wanna lose it, I'm not getting through this pain. Should I pray? Should I pray to myself, to a God, to a Savior?
All right. So nice job. I think the music is great and the idea is really good. There's definitely some ways that it looks like you already released this that I would improve for next time. So firstly, there's like no sub. I'm dying here. You gotta give me some sub bass, man. It's like the thinnest mix I've ever heard. For a song like this with those epic synths and like, you gotta give me some bass. So first things first, that compare it to like an RL Grimes song or somebody that you're inspired by, and just hear the difference of low end. Maybe you're mixing on speakers that don't have low end or something. I don't know, but or your speakers have too much low end that can cause that. So anyway, I'm really missing that. That's the biggest thing that you need to fix in this song, or in a future song. Secondly, everything sounds super wide. It was actually kind of hurting my ears because like, I don't know, it's kind of like trippy when things are too wide. So like your vocals super wide, your synth is super wide. There's like nothing in the middle, especially when you don't have any sub bass. It's so wide that like my ears feel like they're being pulled out of their head. So that's another thing. Like don't overdo it on stereo width, guys. You have to have a centered mix. I would tell you that if I played this in mono, it's probably going to sound horrible. So that's something that's important to keep in mind, is that you have to have a balanced mix. You can't have everything be wide. Other than that, it's good. I think your drops are cool. I think the rest of it needs some work. I think that the verses are a little basic, and it loses momentum. Like you don't have any forward momentum really when you get to like this part. You've now gone through this drop. It's tempting to kind of revert back to what you did in the first part, in the intro and the first verse. But when you do that, and your intro and first verse were kind of melodic and chill, you do that and you risk kind of losing the momentum you built when you had this awesome drop. So I would try something to keep this moving. Have another synth, have some more drums, do something that keeps it moving so that you don't lose all your momentum and get people bored by the time they get here. And then lastly, I feel like your last drop was exactly the same as this one. I think that you want to have a climax. You want to have especially in this kind of epic song, you want to have your last drop do something new, and maybe have the same exact drop here and then have it duplicated here with like another synth with something else going on, and have it be a little longer. But I think it drags a little bit once you get over here. It's just like, okay, get to the point, So overall, though, it's really cool. A lot of potential, but I think you gotta just work on definitely the mix. The mix needs a lot of work, and then just kind of tightening things up and keeping the song flowing and making sure that every part is as good as the best part. Like, don't let your verses fall by the wayside just because drops are more fun to make, right? So anyway, moving right along. Nice job. We've got Andromeda 1, Sunlight. Alrighty, nice work. I referenced Above and Beyond in my automation tricks session earlier, and so obviously I am a trance fan, and this is nice. So my two biggest comments here would be, firstly, the mix is quite muddy. It kind of detracts from how good the music itself is. It needs to sound crisper. It needs to kind of get rid of all that low mid muddiness that's unnecessary. So definitely work on your mixing skills. I know that's like the lamest thing to say. It's such a broad thing and doesn't really help me to just say that. I'm not giving you specific advice, but mixing is tough. So you just got to kind of keep working at it and keep getting better at it. Secondly, I felt that your build didn't really build enough. It kind of just flowed into the drop. And when that happens, it kind of just loses the coolness of how great that drop is. And so I would work on, making your build a little bit more buildy. I would filter out as you approach the drop and then filter back in, make it feel like a real build. If you notice, it sounds and looks basically like the rest of the track. And so definitely work on that, so that when the drop comes in, it really is like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, you really put your hands up and it's like the best thing ever. Here it just kind of feels like it's all one blob. So other than that, though, it's really good. Musically, it's great. I like the vibe. I really like the breakdown here. I like what you did with the string kind of elements and stuff like that. So just kind of keep fine tuning. I mean, you're definitely on the right track. Nice job. All right, Sue, we haven't heard from you in a few weeks, I think. Let's have a listen. Behind My Eyelids or Islands of Violence. Wow, that is deep. Nice. I've decided that the next time you submit a track, I'm going to freestyle over it as I play it back. Just kidding. If I was any good, I would. But no, nice job. I feel like I rarely have much to say about your submissions. They're all very clean. The mix is good. I know I've had some comments on some other ones, but this time really, I think the drums are good. I think I've had some comments on drums before. I think they fit really nicely. Nothing musically is ever wrong with your stuff. It's great. It's great. I'm not gonna make stuff up just because I feel like I have to fill time. So I mean, really, it sounds done to me. It sounds good to go. Would love to hear some vocals on it. But it's great, man. Nice job, and I'm looking forward to continuing to get your submissions, man. Really nice job. And sorry, I mean, maybe it's disappointing to not give feedback. It's like I want to find something. I'm listening pretty carefully, but it all sounds great to me. So nice work. All right, we got Cosmic Take Me Up radio edit next.
Why you take me up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me. You take me up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me. Up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me. You take me up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me. Up, 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 up. Why you take me up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me. You take me up, baby, like you love me. Up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me. You take me up, baby, baby, take me up. Ain't nobody love me like you love me.
All right. Well, first I gotta say you have a lovely voice. I assume it's not you singing. Either way, the vocal is good. So that's great. Musically, it's great. I like it a lot. It feels different. It feels like, I feel like there's so much hard style over the course of the last 20, 30 years, however long you want to call it. And I feel like a lot of it sounds the same. I think this one has a cool mix. I like how your first drop is so different to the second one, and I think it's really good. Mix is the biggest thing here. I think that there's quite a bit of muddiness, and one thing that could help with that is your reverb has too much, in my opinion, from what I can tell, without looking in your DAW. It sounds like there's too much low end in your reverb. I would high pass your reverb at a certain level. You've got these, the big hard style leads. lead synth, and of course that kind of a lead synth has quite a broad frequency spectrum, but your reverb doesn't need to have it also. Like when you have a lead synth that has that, and then your reverb tails off with a lot of low and mid frequency stuff, it just makes it like a layer of muddiness that just never goes away, because that reverb is big and it just is like flowing and purveying, going through the whole track. So I would clean up that reverb. I think that would help a lot. And then, just generally, I think there's some other muddiness. I don't think just the reverb is the issue. And then also, I think that you need to not be afraid to make your drums loud. I think your kick's loud, but you've got these drum fills that are like so quiet. That snare right there, I mean, like, you can barely hear it. Like, I don't know why, but people tend to have a tendency of like thinking that your drum fills need to be quiet. Like, I feel like a lot of tracks get submitted, that's the case. Like, no, your drum fill actually should usually probably be louder than your other drums, because a fill, but in its essence, you're usually taking other elements out. So you need to fill that space with your drum fill, and so it needs to be like loud and front and center. Like, that snare should be like in your face, in my opinion. So don't be afraid to make your claps and your snares and your crashes and stuff louder, as long as you're obviously not overdoing it, making it harsh and messing up your mix and stuff like that. But yeah, like, especially in something like hardstyle, your drums should never be quiet. Like, there should not be quiet drums in hardstyle anywhere, basically. But yeah, overall, other than that, really good. I dig it. I think that, with some cleaning up, you could have a really, really good track. So nice job. All right, guys, it's that sad time of the day when I have to wrap things up. It's been a lot of fun. Great submissions today. Thank you for joining me again on this lovely Friday. It's been a great one. Next week I'll be here. It is a holiday in the United States next weekend, but I'm not going on vacation until after this stream. So I'll be back. You won't be missing me next week, same time, same place. Looking forward to it. I hope you guys all have an awesome weekend. Thank you for submitting it. Sorry if I didn't get to your track today, but I'll try and get to it next time. If I'm really not doing a good job, tell me, but I think I try to mix it up pretty well. So anyway, I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for joining, and this